It's the 25th of January 2022. Hi, everybody. I hope you're doing well. Unless you're with the nuclear industry, I hope you're fucking choking on something as you watch this. And there's no one there to give you the Heimlich maneuver. So there'll be one less scumbag on this planet. But I'm doing good otherwise. Atoms for Humanity. That's the A-10 Warthog, all right. It only shoots dirty bombs. Think about that. Think about that while you recite your patriotism. And have yourself a nice bowl of Fukushima rice. If you're pro-nuclear, it can't hurt you or your children. Just the anti-nuclear, apparently. It's 2017 students. Not armies or militaries or major universities, not Harvard or Stanford or Oxford or MIT, but students are honing the skills to decommission multiple nuclear meltdowns. Multiple nuclear meltdowns. You got to treat Fukushima like it's a meteorite coming at the planet. And everybody looks up and you can see the meteorite and everybody's in denial. Oh, wait a second, they made a movie about that recently, didn't they? I've been saying this for years and years. You got to treat Fukushima. It's like looking up and everybody's denying. No, there's no asteroid, but there it is right there. You can see it with your own eyes. Look up. No, I don't need to look up. It's not there. Or the TV would have told me, Dana. Yeah, that's the world we live in. And so they took away my narrative and turned it into a movie and pretend it's about climate change, which is, by the way, caused by Fukushima. If you subscribe, click the bell. I don't know if it makes a difference. It's supposed to. But it's better just to put me in your bookmark. Or take a screen capture of my face and turn it into target practice for your gun club. I don't know. I don't give a shit. Hello to everybody else on this planet. We're up on scumbag YouTube. My apologies for... It's like dragging everybody into the gutter. Smash that like button. It's not going to register, but smash it anyway. They got me censored. And if you got any other social networking sites, consider putting me up there. There's got to be something out there that'll wake this planet up. I apologize for not being the Hulk, or whatever that's supposed to be. I apologize for not being Spider-Man, which both, by the way, were created by the nuclear industry. I'm just Dana. And I don't fight Wonder Woman because she's not real. Neither is this critter, whatever it is, or this one, who can survive any radiation, by the way, and this one. And you got your GoPro heroes, your hero guitar. The word hero is turned into some fictional creature. In fact, they're the more hero to your children now than you can ever be. You can't compete with Spider-Man and the Hulk and all these other critters. If that don't drag you away from the conversation, let's pretend that the aliens are going to come and fix everything. I can assure you they're not. Japan's Prime Minister, Japanese MP drinks Fukushima water under pressure from journalists. Everybody's like, first off, he didn't climb a tank and drop a bucket down there and pull up the water and dip it in glass and drink it. Boris Johnson drank a can of peach juice. Does that mean Fukushima's safe right now or something? Am I missing something? High-priced Fukushima ice wall nears completions. Ah, yes, the story of the day. Fukushima ice wall. Do you remember this story? Because the nuclear industry likes you to forget history, I can assure you. So rather than build a real wall, because that don't make any sense, which is the reason we got a poll today, by the way, What do you think? Would a normal wall be better than an ice wall? Don't got to worry about the plug coming out of the wall. Like, does it get any stupider? Look, 2 people actually said no, that a normal wall wouldn't be better than a normal wall. There was one there before. I was like, well, there's at least one person out there stupid. But to have 2 of them and both of them find my show at the same time, that's a miracle. That's an actual miracle. So this ice wall, this fictional ice wall they allegedly built, was a total of 260,000 people worked on the ice wall. 260,000 people in a 1.5 square kilometer wall. Okay. And so that's like 10 people to the foot. So this is a depiction of the wall. There was 260,000 people worked on the wall. Oh yeah, and it cost $308 million US. So if you paid everybody, the 260,000 people, $1,186.60 each is $308 million. There's no money left over to build a wall. So how does that work? I mean, like, they tell fantasies, but they don't do the math on the fantasies. You see this all the time in the nuclear industry. 260,000 people worked on creating a wall. It was horrible. We got to save the world. Scientists came everywhere. TEPCO made Fukushima plant into a machine for generating radioactive water. The nuclear industry did. Not TEPCO. TEPCO's not that clever. By the way, TEPCO's nationalized. They don't even exist. They went bankrupt right away. The government took over. Morons. Runoff from the molten atomic cores, the curium, is now in the groundwater of the ocean. I love these pictures. These are some of my favorite pictures. Yeah. I got my paper suit on. Check. Got my boots on? Check. Had breakfast? Check. Okay. Ready to go. Where's that nuclear meltdown? I kick his ass. Now, the reason he's way over here is because it's 2.2 sieverts per hour in the actual numbers. But say 2 sieverts per hour means the tanks are 1.4 million sieverts each. I got to kind of build you this whole story first. And so you need an ice wall around each tank, by the way, if the tanks were actually full. And the reason they got the tanks, as you'll see coming up, their version is the official thing is that they're collecting the water, that they're pouring on the reactors. Not a drop of it is getting in the ocean. Under any circumstances, Dina. Okay, just calm down, man. We're just having a try. First off, this is radioactive fallout based on 20-day model on venting, not the actual nuclear inventories that were lost. Okay. If you let the model run for another 10 days, the entire planet is covered in a snowstorm of radioactive fallout. Now let that sink in for a second. Tanks at the Crippled Japan nuclear power plant that don't exist anymore. It's not a nuclear power plant anymore. Leaks highly radioactive water. 2013. And they say 1,000 steel tanks are built across the plant's complex. 1,000 tanks in 2013. Dana, how many tanks they got today? Well, it's 1,000 tanks. By the way, if you fill up the tanks with 2 sieverts an hour, it's 1.4 million sieverts per tank. And the tanks are not thick enough to shield you from anything close to that, which means you can't actually build another tank on the site, let alone right alongside of each other. It simply can't be done because of the gamma shines, the alpha burst, the neutron burst, the X-rays.
Lewis! Lewis!
The bolts
Mom!
in Fukushima tank
Mom!
will corrode in just a
Mom!
few years.
Mommy!
And
Mommy!
TEPCO says it
Mommy!
doesn't know how long the tanks
Mama!
will hold out.
Mama!
2013.
Mama! Ma! Ma! Ma!
Ma.
Mom!
Mom.
Mom! Mom! Mommy! Mommy! Mama!
Mama.
Mama!
Mama.
Mama!
Mama.
Hi.
If I does videos with just junk like that, I'd have 100,000 views or viewers by now. So this effect you're seeing here, think of that. So when you see this, right, on the ground, it looks like this. Except it's covering the whole planet at the same time. And each one of them is pulsing energy at the speed of light. Okay, all right. Now for the good stuff, hang on. They can pulse 20, 30, 40 feet, even up to an airplane that's flying over it, which is, they fly 1,000 feet off the ground. They measure the radiation that way. So it has incredible amount of energy at 186,000 miles at the instantly in a millionth of a second, pulsing energy every second in every direction, each one of these. That's energy, that's pure energy. It's the same energy, by the way, that was heating 1 million homes, or millions of homes. And if you take 1,000 nuclear power plants worldwide, they all do this naturally from the fuel pools, because they're still splitting the atom. This is what it looks like. So nuclear power plants are constantly producing new snowstorms that never go away. Imagine, you know, if you had a 30-inch snowstorm tonight, and the next day you had another 30-inch snowstorm, and the next day you got another 30-inch snowstorm, and the next day another 30-inch snowstorm. And that happens every day, and it's just right through summer and the fall again, all winter, all spring, all summer, all fall next year, year after year now, decade after decade. That's what fuel pools are doing to our planet. But you can't see it or smell it or taste it or hear it or touch it or feel it or fickle it. What the hell is a flickle it, Dana? It's a fickle it. And they hit each other at the speed of light, these pulses, and they change direction at the speed of light, almost the speed of light, 186,000 miles in a millionth of a second. And then it changes direction, creates another effect. It's a unique X-ray. There's many unique X-rays. This one is well known. It's a braking effect. And look at all these people. You always see weird pictures where nobody knows what they're doing. And they carry the same bags in their hands, literally in their same hands. And they walk around aimlessly, and they're walking on steel plates. And it's okay, we got your picture, go meet you back at the lunchroom. In 2014, they had 1,200 tanks. So I'll get back to the story. In 2013, 1,000 tanks. In 2014, at the nuclear meltdown site, again, people walking around, don't know what they're doing or when they're going to do it, they had 1,200 tanks. In 2017, they had 900 tanks. And 2019 was 1,000 tanks. In 2021 was 1,000 tanks again. At 2 sieverts per hour beta, not alpha, not counting the alpha or the neutrons or the gamma, just a beta. Just a beta. Okay, so they had 2013 had 1,000 tanks, 2014 was 1,200 tanks, 2017 was 900 tanks. If somebody's not being honest, and it's going to be the nuclear despicable industry. The coward, as we know now, the coward industry. Fukushima radioactive tanks may have already been emptied into the Pacific Ocean. Oh, and the radiation also covered the entire planet and the whole country. It looks like this in Tokyo too, by the way, 220 plus kilometers away. This is another model of the radioactive fallout, pulsing energy every second at the speed of light from the troposphere all the way to the ocean floor every second, completely saturated and still hemorrhaging out of the nuclear wasteland. Explainer, wall of ice at Fukushima crippled nuclear plant. That was the story tonight. There's quite a few of these stories over the weekend. Again, you notice everybody standing on those steel plates? You'll see that throughout the entire site looks like that. It's quite unusual. Coolant for freezing the soil leaked. Okay, so we'll get to that story, because that's today's story in a minute. Let's go backwards. TEPCO to abandon the AREVA system. The AREVA system was a water filtration system. That's August the 12th, 2014. Anybody's keeping score. For the last 3 years, the system has been unused and kept out of operations. For the last 3 years, in 2014, takes you back to the nuclear meltdown, the system has been unused. That was France's system, the AREVA. They also have the ELP system, and this story is April the 21st, 2014. The Advanced Liquid Processing System, acronym of ELPS, has yet to function reliably. 2014. The utility, which doesn't exist anymore, has been nationalized, also known as TEPCO. So the government operates the Fukushima Daiichi plant. It's supposed to be the nuclear industry, right? At this stage is taken over, but they refuse to go there. Promised to treat all contaminated water by March 2015. A goal that is now emitting will not be realized. And there are parts of the site that they still don't have full control. It's so radioactive they can't actually go there. So you have the AREVA system and the ELP system. In the first 4 years, didn't work a single time. But they had 1,000 tanks in 2013. But the problem with the story was, each year you had massive rainfall from cyclones or typhoons or whatever it is to get there. And you also, which is the equivalent of hurricanes for North America, right? Except they spin the opposite direction or whatever. And you have, don't quote me on that, by the way. And you have snowfall all winter washing through the entire country that is covered in radiation. It's not just the site on top of that. You have also the whole planet, right, is hemorrhaging radiation. The whole planet. So imagine how bad ground zero is, because that's why we're here tonight. They're lying about the cooling wall. First off, they couldn't filter the water, as you'll see coming up. 100 million becquerels per cubic centimeter, 2011. So these kind of numbers, you put them in tanks, you can only fill up one tank and then you can't get back on the site. The tank is not thick enough to shield you. TEPCO says groundwater bypass operations not have an effect at Fukushima Daiichi. So they were also trying to, not really, this was just another cover story. This was July 29, 2014. They were going to have a groundwater bypass. So the ice wall is the same thing, where it stops the water allegedly coming down the mountain, and it goes around the wall and out into the ocean. So you're talking a frozen wall, and a frozen wall, you get the neutrons build up there, will cause a chain reaction. So the poll tonight is, should we not have a real wall rather than an ice wall? And they built the ice wall because they got the money from the taxpayers to do it. If they have to build the walls themselves, then the stockholders had to pay for the wall. There was no stockholders at this time, just the Japanese government and the nuclear industry to prop it up, right? So the TEPCO officials admit that the groundwater bypass operations are failing to reduce tons of water from entering the crippled reactor buildings at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear plant. So what happens is the reactors typically need 4,500 pickup trucks of water, 4,500 tons, 4,500 pickup trucks with 2,200 pounds of water in the back of each one every minute for every 1,440 minutes a day, each day, just to run normal. When they melt down, they're going to go up to 9,000 degree Fahrenheit temperatures. You're going to need a lot. You're going to need at least the same water, but certainly a lot more, right? So they build these sites over aquifers or riverbeds, so that if the reactor goes China syndrome, that water fills up the hole and slows down some of the reaction. But as you know, molten lava underwater is still molten lava. TEPCO officials have admitted that groundwater bypass operations are failing to reduce it. And they didn't know when, if ever. And this was a pumping operation where they're going to pump the water and pump it out into the ocean so it didn't go into the nuclear meltdown site itself, because of what's known as liquefaction, where the water comes up through the site through a hydraulic effect, which happens anyway. So when you pour water on the reactors, it goes straight down into the ground. Once it gets below the so-called ice wall, the old riverbed on the back of it that runs down through the ground will catch it and push it out into the ocean. That's the theory of building it in those places. TEPCO failed to deliver on promise to install a fence. So this is a bizarre story. To restrict contamination from getting into the Pacific Ocean. So the ice wall will stop water from coming down the mountain and ingressing into the reactor buildings. The bypass operation was pumping water from behind as it was coming down the mountain and then delivered to the ocean, bypassing the plant itself. The fence is like a filter. Now, you know, like a strainer you use to get your spaghetti. Well, this is a strainer they're talking about to catch radiation particulates. But you can put 2 million atoms on the head of a needle, you still can't see it. The filters can't filter something like that. And it was going to cost $1 billion, they say. At the time, TEPCO asked the government, which was nationalized, so that the government asked the government of Japan not to announce that they had committed to constructing the fences. As the utility was concerned, the $1 billion, that they already spent like $750 billion, cost would increase its debt. And the government agreed not to publicize the arrangement, but then TEPCO did not undertake the work they promised to complete. So you had the ice wall, which is supposed to direct water around it and out to the ocean, but it doesn't stop it from going underneath it, right? And catching the stuff that's flowing down through it. Every time it rains, it just washes straight through the reactor, straight down to the bedrock, and the old river washes it out into the ocean. That's the backup plan. So the original foundation is all boulders. Then it's crushed rock, and then crushed like pebbles, and then they get into a foundation for the plant above it. These sites are always built up. They usually spend $500 million just on engineering, not physical work, but engineering, designing and surveying the site to make sure it has those attributes. The government agreed not to publicize the arrangement. So no fence, no pumping on the other side, and no actual functional ice wall. TEPCO's 2014 TEPCO's ice wall operation not meeting expectations. Officials announced today that they have found that the ice wall plans are not progressing according to plan. And we have yet to form the ice stopper because we can't make the temperature low enough to freeze the water. Because everybody forgets that they can't actually do it. And they admitted originally, right, this has never been done on a big scale. And everybody asked the same question as we're asking in the poll tonight. Would a normal wall be better than an ice wall? Hi, everybody. Would a normal wall be better than an ice wall at a nuclear meltdown? And there's at least 3 idiots here tonight. Wow, said no. So how the hell can an ice wall be better? How can an ice wall be better? We're live, but nobody can embed the video because the degenerate pieces of shit at nuclear lobbyists at Google won't let my video be embedded. So here you go. I just checked it. If anybody was embedding it now, people coming to their site will see the video. Up to then, you would just get a, sorry, this is not available. And we are live streaming with an amazing audience of 29 people. What the hell? Where'd they all come from? Well, that's cool. So, would a normal wall be better than an ice wall? Well, a normal wall, you haven't got to freeze anything. That's pretty cool. And a normal wall, you don't got to spend $12 billion a year to make sure the power doesn't go out. And a normal, or 12 million a year, which is what they spend allegedly, who knows, it's probably double that now. And a normal wall, it's plug and play. You build it and walk away. Job done. What's next? Let's get another 260,000 homeless and build a wall around every tank. The tanks are empty. The tanks are built to trick you into thinking they didn't pollute the Pacific Ocean. That's the only reason you would build those tanks. And you can't filter it because the filter is so radioactive you can't get near the filtration system or the filters again. It's absurd to suggest you could. It doesn't work that way. And you can't use any electronics in that environment, period. They're instantly going to be fried. So, new map of radioactive iodine released from Fukushima Daiichi. So, they found 3 million becquerels per square meter, and they were flying at 20 kilometers, up to 20 kilometers away, at 1,000 feet above the ground, at the very top of it, 1,000 feet above the ground. And they were finding 3,000 becquerels of iodine-131 per square meter. These are absurd numbers, folks. Now, they're only looking at gamma. That's what iodines are. They're gamma. But remember, there's 10 times more iodine-132, 30 times more iodine-133, 31 times more iodine-129 for every iodine-131 created. And EU Energy Commissioner called Fukushima an apocalypse and that everything was under control. And France says Japan has lost control. The French should leave the country. You got 4 more. Swiss embassy evacuates Tokyo, fearing radiation. You sure that's not Fukushima, Dana? No, Tokyo. Tokyo's a long ways away, Dana. Yeah, I know. Tokyo's lost almost all control of events at Fukushima. Well, it did. It lost all, like we recently done a 5-part series, this is my playlist, of pictures released by TEPCO. And the pictures were in the first 40 days or so. It was almost 1,900 pictures. And it showed that they never had control of the site whatsoever. Nuclear report warns of an apocalyptic scenario at Fukushima. This could one day be considered the start of the ultimate catastrophe of the world and the planet. Think about that statement. Your power plant breaks down. This could be one day considered the ultimate catastrophe of the planet. You hear so many connotations like that back originally from people in extraordinary placed positions, by the way, that have since been replaced and now keeps their mouth quite on the opposite side of truth. Officials unsure what to do next. Officials! There is no such thing as an official in Japan. Official idiots. Korea calls Japan's handling of Fukushima politely incompetent. That's being extremely polite, by the way, to use the word incompetent. I'm pretty sure nobody said that. I'm sure it's more like effing idiots. Mentally handicapped working at Fukushima plant. Because TEPCO's not there. Do you know that they closed down 54 nuclear power plants in Japan after Fukushima? But none of them went to work at Fukushima. And we know this because there's all kinds of headlines. They're going to run out of workers in about 5 years. The unskilled and destitute, not the ex-employees, the ex-big shot nuclear employees from 54 nuclear power plants in Japan, by the way. No, they're not lining up to work at Fukushima a single hour. How come? Because they're not stupid. And so they put out a video today, and it's not this picture. Leak first reported, water tank, reactor number 3, 2, 1. This is the world you're living in. And it's not fair, it's not acceptable, and it's not tenable or sustainable. Fukushima Daiichi nuclear plant, coolant for freezing soil leaks. Imagine what kind of bitch she actually is. So they show you this is today's video. That's a depiction of the plant, and the green sticks you see in there is pipes they put down into the earth, and then they claim they froze the earth, and now everything is sealed off. That's how it works. If it's like that, then the water flows through. It has to be perfectly sealed, and so you can't call it a wall because it's not a wall. That's not a wall. If you put a real wall in there, you wouldn't have any issues. 28 votes, and 75% said that a normal wall would be better than an ice wall. 25% thinks that an ice wall is better than a normal wall? Good God. Like, why do you hate your parents so much? Well, I shouldn't say anything. It's better to have you here doing that than home raping your pets and your children, I suppose. Help Wanted ad seeks employees able to carry out a conversation and skew polls. That's how they got their job, the ones that are here claiming that an ice wall is better than a natural wall. 260,000 people slaved, Dana, for a lousy $1,600 each. The whole industry is nothing but scum. Incredible. It's not frozen, by the way. We already showed you that earlier. Seniors sought for frontline radiation cleanup in Japan, but they got 260,000 people to work on the ice wall, Dana. Yeah, but only the homeless and the destitute are working there. Yeah, it's okay, Dana, but they got 260,000 people to build a wonderful ice wall, Dana, and it's better than a real wall, Dana. You guys are idiots. I hope you get knocked down by a car and then the crowd jumps on you and fucking strangles you right on the spot. So we can get you off our planet, you pieces of shit in the nuclear industry. I wanted to escape the nuclear plant, but feared they might hurt me. They're talking about the pro-nuclear community would hurt them. Nuclear scientists would beat them if they didn't go into the nuclear meltdown and do the work, right? Because they ain't nuclear scientists. Nuclear scientists didn't say, I wanted to escape from the nuclear plant, but feared they might hurt me. That's not a nuclear scientist. How's the vote going? It's pretty hard to believe that we're down to 23% now. Way to go, folks. TEPCO admits the ice wall will not stop the groundwater from entering the Crippled. I done a video last night on Reactors 3 and 4. You should... Over there to your left is what it looks like. To the right is the fake Reactor 4. Fuck it, let's play it.
Where I was standing is on top of what used to be reactor building number 4. The whole of this building was blown apart by a huge explosion.
We are here inside Reactor 4 at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant that was severely crippled during the earthquake and tsunami of 2011.
Of the decommissioning work taking place here in Reactor 4.
At the end of our tour, we were checked for radiation exposure. In 4 hours, I received the equivalent of less than a chest x-ray.
1,500 highly radioactive fuel rods inside this pool. They've got to move them outside of this reactor.
So how many people think that they're really in the fuel pool top of that building? Besides the pro-nuclear community. Is there anybody out there that actually thinks that the people to the right, the major medias to the right, are actually in the fuel pool at the top of the building to the left, 100 feet above the deck there? Because if you are new to the subject, and that's the first time you've ever seen that picture, let's look at that one more time. And so, does anybody on the planet believe the people to the right are 100 feet above the building to the left, and that it looks perfect, and that the building to the left is a optical illusion or a hologram, and the real building is there, but we can't see it, and it looks like the building to the right that those people are claiming they're in? Is there anybody on the planet? Anybody? Now, does anybody got any concept of why they're doing something like that? Why would you pretend you're in a building that don't even exist? Would it have something to do with the radioactive fallout that covers the entire planet, and you don't want people to know about that? I'd be saying so. TEPCO emits, that's a stretch and a half, the ice wall will not stop the groundwater from entering the Crippled. These buildings I showed you don't even exist. They're not crippled. They're completely gone. And they're saying the coolant for freezing the soil is leaked. Leak data. You leak ever catches you. Back of your head will be leaking. Mentally disabled are working at Fukushima Daiichi, said journalist. Many men forced to go to plant, homeless are treated like disposable people. Ah, the stoic nuclear industry for you right there, folks. That's what makes the nuclear industry better than everybody else. They're willing to victimize everybody so they can get a paycheck every Friday and pretend that they're good people rather than get a real job and actually be good people. I have to comment on a video tonight that I curb stomp a million scumbags just like him every year. Because I was in such a good mood. The nuclear industry. Coolant from freezing soil leaks, and this is a helicopter flight over the nuclear meltdown. When you go in for the close-ups, explainer ice wall of ice at Fukushima crippled. Workers tricked to being on the front line of Fukushima. They kept them in a shed. After a few days, they throw you away. I guess so. We went through 260,000 people to build the ice wall, right? That's what they said. Hang on. Hang on before you call me a liar. Hang on. A total of 260,000 people worked on creating the wall. And when you work that out, they spent $308 million, is less than $1,200 per person if you don't buy any material for 260,000 people. 260,000 people to build a 1.5 kilometer fable, is it? That's a fable. Welcome to the fable. Here we go. There she is, folks. There's the brains behind stupidity. And you notice they're all standing on steel rusted plates. It's because there's so much fuel got into the soil after the detonations. You can't go there without getting a deadly dose. TEPCO employees, as I showed you, workers are tricked to being on the front lines. They kept them in a shed. And they're not talking about nuclear workers. They're not talking about volunteers from other nuclear power plants or something like that. The operator of the Fukushima nuclear power plant said 2 storage tanks had leaked 4 tons of coolant being used to create an ice wall to prevent groundwater from seeping in. Should build an ice wall right around the planet. The incident highlights TEPCO's struggle to clean up the plant nearly 11 years after an earthquake and tsunami set off meltdowns. One of the worst nuclear disasters. So that line shows up in all media worldwide. Why is that? One of the worst nuclear disasters. All of Japan must face it, except for nuclear academics, nuclear scientists, of course, and nuclear power plant employees, because they never went there. Tokyo Vice Governor suggests a Fukushima draft. 16 older should be prepared to die at the Fukushima plant. So if your coal plant breaks down, or your gas plant, or your oil plant break down, should everybody 16 older be prepared to die? I thought people 16 older should be prepared to retire, so they can live out the rest of their life because they worked hard all their life and were robbed by the system. UN officials astounded that homeless are taken to work in Fukushima ready to die. At the end of the month, they're left with no money, and they're in debt to the scumbags who have destroyed their health and now robbed them of the little tiny bit of monetary. That's the nuclear industry, though, right? That's the norm in the nuclear industry. Isn't that reassuring? Doesn't that make you feel all warm inside? It also comes just as the utilities ready to build a tunnel to the sea to release more than 1 million tons of irradiated water from the site. After treatment, of course. 1 million tons. Wait, now they had 1,000 tanks in 2013, 1,200 tanks in 2014. They only got 1,000 tanks in 2022, do they? I think somebody is lying. The operator, which doesn't exist anyway, is nationalized, said the leak had no impact on the wall or the environment. So why did all the media come out screaming? In the worst nuclear disaster since Chernobyl in 1986 is another line we see all the time. Everybody on the planet knows they got to use that line or they don't get any advertisement, or what? How does that work? Well, the nuclear industry writes these stories and the media publishes under their authors. It also comes just as the utility is ready to build a tunnel to the sea. In an effort to start around the spring of 2023. Okay, all right. Well, in reality though, they've already covered the planet in radioactive fallout. The story about the tunnels and the tanks and the walls is meant to distract you away from what I'm showing you. It's meant to keep you confused and divided. And the reality of it is, here's a headline to think about. Deteriorating plant threatens mass extinction around the world. You know how it does that? I'll show you. I'm going to make a lawyer out of me. I'll show you. That's not the one I was looking for. Yes, the life of the nuclear industry, right? Anytime you're ready there, siren head. So, the nuclear industry is not, they kept it, it's a death cult, right? They kept the truth secret, all the actual equations. Because when you know of one isotope, you can do a mathematical equation, extrapolate thousands of different isotopes. There's around 12,000 allegedly that are classified by the militaries of the world, different isotopes that we don't know about. And they're not classifying it because it's harmless and innocuous and benign, I can assure you. They're classifying it because it has incredible dangerous attributes. And we do that. So the radiation covers the planet in just a matter of a couple of weeks, but it didn't stop there. Oh, I'm going black. His back is black. Go back one. Let me get on a big screen. It's kind of hard to read. Just as utility is ready to build a tunnel to the sea to release massive amounts of the tanks that are actually already empty. In operation since 2016, I showed you the ice wall just didn't work and it wasn't operational. Or there would have been all kinds of information showing that. It wouldn't be just a single story here. The ice wall is meant to keep contaminated water within the plant, which is not what is meant. It's not meant to keep contaminated water in the plant. There's no bottom to the ice wall. How can you keep it in? But if most people don't have real critical thinking skills, which becomes radioactive on seeping into the basements of the crippled reactors, sinking into the basements of the crippled reactors. Well, here's what the two major destroyed reactors looked like originally. Here's a better shot of reactor 3. There is no basement per se, right? It's been destroyed. The explosion at reactor number 3 was felt 25 miles away. It doesn't just destroy outward, it destroyed in every direction. The earthquake had already cracked the pools on top of that. There should be reactor 3 detonating. That's reactor 3. The buildings in the bottom are 190 feet tall. What you see falling is the fuel pools and the reactor cores. So reactor 3 and reactor 4, there is no fuel pools left, and there is no reactor core left. But they pretend that they got all the fuel out of the reactors pools and also reactor 3. This is simply not true. This is inferred cleanup work forcing TEPCO to pump out the water for storage in the huge tanks at an annual cost of about $100 billion, which is 900 million US each year, to pump water. They're claiming they're pumping water out of the basements. First off, you can't get close enough to it without getting a lethal dose. And this is like when you hear them talking about they had 260,000 people to build the ice wall was because it was so dangerous. This is what the story is. And they were getting such a dose that they went through constant people. When you do the math, they only made $1,200 each if they bought no material for the wall. So there's something wrong about that narrative, obviously. It's like the rest of the narrative from anything in any creature in the nuclear industry. Any of them, these are degenerate scumbags. They'll rape your dogs, rape your pets, and the drop of a hat, they're go time. They're incredible cowards. It's a coward industry. You can't. You're attracted to the industry if you grew up abusing animals, setting them on fire and stuff like that while they were alive. You were attracted to the nuclear industry. If you, the majority of people in the nuclear industry wouldn't hesitate to molest your children. This is what they do for a living. They murder and destroy. Now space is running out as nearly 1.3 million tons of water has accumulated. Of course, the reactors go through 4,500 tons a minute. Each reactor building. Let me give you some context of what we're actually talking about here. I'll bring up the big shot calculator for everybody. Bring in my shiny head for you. So don't need a point. 1.3. Oh, that's not down. 1.3 million tons. So divide that by 4,500 tons they normally use every minute. Is 288 minutes divided by 60. And it gives you 5 hours. So in 5 hours, each reactor will go through 1.3 million tons in normal operation. So when you hear them talking about 1.3 million tons of water accumulated, they're only talking about 4.8 hours worth of normal water that would have been used on a reactor. So they're simply not being honest. They had 1,000 tanks, and I showed you earlier, in 2013. Coolant pumped into freezing tubes reduces temperatures to about -30 in 1,500 tubes filled with brine that are 100 feet along a depth of 30 meters and 1.5 kilometers around the plant. Freezes the surrounding groundwater in a continuous wall of frozen soil with coolant is recirculated. Dana? Whoever wrote that story, I would like to kick their teeth down their throat. Not that I'm a mean person, just I despised whoever wrote that. You're a despicable scum creature. Would a normal wall be better than an ice wall? A stupid ice wall at a vicious nuclear meltdown, nuclear reactor power plant meltdown. Amazing, unbelievable, inconceivable. 24% thinks no, that an ice wall stupid. Such a stupid. 260,000 people. There's heroes, Dana, to build the ice wall. It's just nothing adds up. Not one freaking part of their story adds up. It's a hateful, despicable, useless industry that doesn't have a right to exist. And the people that are in the industry makes a living by telling lies. And they don't have a right to be public figures. Why not get a real job? Why take a job where all you do is lie to everybody? How do you get to be, right? How do you get that disconnected that you get an incredible education to take a job just to lie to people? Because it's killing so many people and species worldwide. What's the bloody point of that? How does that actually work? The latest leak appears to have been caused by warping of joints in metal pipes, despite a lack of visible cracks, as if the walls are buried. No one's going to go down and visually see the crack in the wall. A TEPCO creep said, the system is operating after the defective parts were replaced. So now they're claiming they fixed it. Perpetual lawyers, yeah? This is what they do for a living. And they put incredible amount of their entire, every second of their life into telling these lies. The last of roughly 8 leaks since the wall became operative was in 2019, probably because of the metal fatigue from vibrations caused by construction vehicles. Right? Because this is another part of the story where they want you to believe there's 7,000 or 8,000 people on the site every day. At the site of a nuclear meltdown. This is absurd to suggest there's 7,000 or 8,000 people there. What are you going to do? You can't do nothing. It's a lethal dose for every... And then they also claimed those paper suits, that they burned 7,000 plus paper suits every day, right? We've covered those incredible stories. The best thing can happen is the world goes to war against the nuclear industry and exterminates them before they exterminate us and all the species. Because that's what they're doing, whether you want to admit it or not. The coolant in Sunday's leak, and they're exterminating themselves too by proxy because they're actually that stupid. The coolant in Sunday's leak was a solution of calcium chloride used in cement mixes to hasten settings and in food to firm your food. Demonic demons. They're just demonic demons. Water release in the tunnel. In December, now the nuclear industry wrote the article, and that's probably why I'm so upset. And in December, TEPCO said it aimed to build an underwater tunnel. TEPCO, which is nationalized, is the Japanese government. In December, the Japanese government said the nuclear industry is really who's behind all of it. The nuclear industry, aka TEPCO, aka nuclear industry, said it aimed to build an underwater tunnel to dump the highly radioactive water into the ocean. And calling it treated water, I treat you if I ever caught the person that wrote this for the nuclear industry. I treat you to an incredible beatdown, I tell you what. The water will be processed to remove all radioactive contamination except for tritium. Like whoever wrote that, that's their head is the reason that we made baseball bats, which will be diluted to a seventh of the corporation known as the World Health Organization, which is United Nations. It's just a subsidy of United Nations, which is basically a subsidy of McDonald's, which will be diluted to a seventh of the World Health Organization standards for drinking water. And this is what I mean. You got this corporation known as United Nations, with all kinds of subsidies like the International Atomic Energy Agencies, the World Health Organization, UNSCLEAR, IRPA, the ICPP, UNICEF, and the list goes on and on and on. It's actually 195 scum, degenerate military countries. The military, these people are brainwashed. You go in the military because you can't get a real job anywhere else. So you get sucked into this genocide machine, and they dress you up in a suit and tell you you're a good person, when you're not. You're just another murderer with a license to kill, and too stupid to go get a real job, too stupid to do something good, too incompetent to do something. You join the fucking military. Throw nuclear plants worldwide routinely discharge water with tritium in them. First off, reactors don't make tritium, they make tritium-3H. It's completely different. Natural tritium is natural, it's harmless. Everything is already acclimated to it through genetics pure selection. Tritium-3H is what you put in nuclear weapons to make them twice as powerful. It's not harmless. I just despise all of these people. And so they claim that it was edited by these people. It's not. It's done by the nuclear industry. They put their name on it. And down the road, when they're looking for a job being a scumbag somewhere else, they say, well, yeah, we came out and helped cover up Fukushima water and the ice wall. Separately, a lawsuit set to be filed on Thursday against TEPCO says a group of 6 men and women developed thyroid cancers. Again, they want you to believe only cancers, first off, is the only thing out there that can happen to you with radiation. There's actually 1,800 illnesses and diseases and autoimmune deficiencies and injuries. You know, heart problems, liver problems, lung, respiratory, pituitary, thyroid, adrenaline, Alzheimer's, dementia, autism. The list goes on and on and on. So this is a down on the seaside of the pump houses. If there's even real, you can't even trust the industry anymore. Wearing paper suits, carrying paper bags. And would a normal wall be better than a ridiculous ice wall at a nuclear meltdown? Now I'll show you how hateful and despicable the nuclear industry actually is. Elementary school in Japan is using water bottles to shield students from radiation. Try wrapping your mind around this story. Rather than evacuate the kids, the nuclear industry won't let them evacuate. And an elementary school in Koriyama City, located in Fukushima Prefecture, 34 miles, not kilometers, west of the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant, is using water bottles to shield the radiation coming from the courtyard and other areas around the school. And the bottles are filled with water and placed inside the square boxes, because round ones are not boxes, which are stacked around the classroom. And here's pictures to help shield the students in the classroom from radiation. Does that even make any fucking sense to anybody on the planet? And the nuclear industry, no, well, it works, Dana. And it's like, yeah, your tongue won't ever catch you, because I'll rip it right out of your fucking throat. Is using water bottles to shield radiation coming from the courtyard and other areas around the school buildings. The bottles are filled with water and placed inside of square boxes which are stacked around the classrooms. That's the most revolting thing I've ever heard. They won't let the children evacuate. And they call themselves humans too, believe it or not. The pro-nuclear is just disgusting. They're despicable. If you try to take any of the pro-nuclear community down to Fukushima, they would fall on their backs They'd grab everything. They'd be screaming, "No! I don't want to go, please!" According to the school, it seems to have reduced the radiation levels inside by 1/3. And the Geiger counters you're using can only find gamma. They can't find beta or alpha or neutrons. Now, everything in the nuclear industry should be disposed of like a bad dream and quickly. Residents of Kuriyama City have been concerned about the high amounts of radioactive material which were found around their towns. Of course, the media doesn't tell you. You got to go look that up. United Nations Scientific Committee. United Nations is a corporation created to take away the sovereignty of your countries worldwide in increments over decades, and they've now reached their goal, and nobody can even go outdoors now without a fucking mask on their heads. They can't stop a virus, for starters. Well, the coronavirus is the cover story for radioactive fallout, right? Because radiation causes almost 2,000 known illnesses and diseases and types of deaths. Coronavirus is 100% about covering up what I'm showing you. Average disposition density of 137 cesium on soil. And Kuriyama City is 229,000. So the second list, right? Kuriyama City, is 162,000 counts per minute of just gamma cesium. These are absurd numbers because you gotta to extrapolate all the other isotopes that are going to be present, right? So children shouldn't be in that community, let alone that school. And the nuclear industry takes great pleasure in tricking them to stay there. How demonic, how demonic do you gotta be to work in the nuclear industry? You actually gotta be demonic. You really, truly gotta be some kind of weird demon. You gotta be some incredible weird demon. See, the demons are got us up to 20. They got to vote 27 no. It's still 3-1 shit for brains. You still look like scumbags even if you artificially inflate the no vote. You pieces of shit. Call me. Call in, you fucking pieces of shit out there. Hang on. You maggots. You disgusting parasites. Call in, you fuckers. 709-589-4406. Call me and tell me why your ice wall is better than a natural wall, you sacks of shit. Call in. Call in, you fucking goblins. Call in. Call in, you fucking disgusting cowards. Call me. Call in right now, you fucking demonic little demons, and tell me why an ice wall is better than fucking real wall. Come on. Come on, you pieces of shit. Call me. Call in, you fucking cowards. The number's right there. Let's go, you tough pieces of shit. Here's your chance. Call in and tell us why I'm fucking wrong. What are you waiting for? What are you waiting for, morons? Pick up the fucking phone and phone me. Right there, 709-589-4406. I'll put you right on the speaker. Call in, you fucking pieces of degenerate shit. Come on. Call in. Get out of your mommy's clothes and call in. Come on, call in. Pick it up and call. Pick up your phone and call me, you disgusting pieces of shit. Come on, coward. I'm waiting. You're holding up the show, coward. Come on, scumbag. Come on, you fucking scumbag. Call into the show. Come on, you fucking degenerate. Call the show. Coward. You coward. You despicable coward. Come on, coward. As usual. That's the one thing you can count on the nuclear industry is they're cowards. No maybes about it. There's no ifs about it. They're 100% cowards, man. They're not ashamed of it. They're cowards and they know it. It's fucking cowards. Fukushima sake shop opens in New York City. The Fukushima government. The government of Fukushima has opened a radioactive sake shop in New York City. Wrap your mind around it. A radioactive sake shop in New York City. Nuclear fallout will engulf Taiwan. You might as well get your bottles down there too. And don't forget you're going to need it in South Korea too, stupid. 130 schools closed in South Korea. Well, it's time to abandon Korea. If you've got to close 130 schools in your country because of radioactive fallout from another country, it's time to abandon your country because of stupid, moronic, demonic nuclear. Moron nuclear. Latest forecast has all of California on a radiation threat. Radiation threat. Levels as high as in Japan. Nuclear policy experts are striking that the radioactivity in California rainwater is far above the levels permitted in drinking water. Rainwater samples near San Francisco 18,000% above federal drinking water standards from radiation. Radiation found in Hawaii milk. Fukushima radioactive plume contacted North America. Really? This is only a 20-day model, by the way. What happens when you run the model for another 10 days? Is there, like, that's incredibly terrifying as it is. An invisible snowstorm of radiation. And the pieces of shit got the arrogance to go out and say that nuclear is carbon free. You said that to my face, I'd punch a hole right through your heads. Fukushima plume to reach the US West Coast in months. Really? Months? This took about this took 20 days. To cover the whole fucking planet in radioactive fallout. We've seen radioactive rain out in Oregon, Washington. UC Berkeley study author claims EPA limit for iodine in drinking water is 81 picocuries a liter. Actually, it's only 3 picocuries a liter. Berkeley professor claims no matter what happens in Fukushima, not going to be a problem in the United States. The numbers were insane of radioactive fallout in the United States. I'll show you. Very high concentrations of hot particles in the Pacific Northwest during April, May, included plutonium and americium. Independent French Radiation Commission warns Europe that the health risk from Fukushima fallout is no longer negligible. It says the U.S. West Coast had 8 to 10 times more contamination. Los Angeles had the highest radioactive gamma disposition in the U.S. Well, what about alpha and beta neutron, you sacks of shit? U.S. West Coast bore a significant brunt of hot particles from Fukushima disaster. Cesium and iodines are both gamma, at 600% above EPA maximum containment levels in Hawaii's milk. It meant that their whole ecosystem now was radioactive in a bad way. Feds emit radioactive xenon-133 from Fukushima detected 2 days ago in Washington State. It was actually 450,000 times above detection levels. These absurd numbers we're actually talking about. Fallout in New Hampshire at 12,000 atoms per square meter in the sediment. 12,000 atoms pulsing energy every second in every direction at the speed of light. Large radiation clouds nearing California. You know, it covers your whole country, your communities, your drinking water, your playgrounds, your supermarkets. High radiation, high concentrations of radiation hit U.S. and Canada, rich in gamma, close to the surface. Hot particles bombarded the coast of U.S. and Canada. Hot particles found at 2 of 3 U.S. monitoring stations. Nowhere to run. Hot radioactive particles in Seattle at 50% of the levels seen in Tokyo. This is why we see the mass species die-offs. Local newspaper editor blasts UC Berkeley professor for radiation comments. Oklahoma City rain at 1.62 microsieverts per hour. Dangerous radiation backgrounds. And by the way, microsieverts is not how you measure radiation. It's becquerels, like we were showing, like 12,000 atoms in New Hampshire, right? You don't use microsieverts for fallout. Microsieverts, millisieverts are for direct line of sight of nuclear fuel rods. Average person in Seattle breathed in 10 hot radioactive particles a day. Abnormal readings, 8 of 18 EPA monitors. In California, Oregon, Washington, unprecedented spike of 1,500 atoms of the sulfur peroxide hydrogen buckyballs per cubic meter in the California air. Uranium-234 detected in Hawaii, Southern California, Seattle. Uranium-238 spiked 50 times normal in Hawaii. U.S. Department of Energy labs in the Pacific Northwest declined to make the nuclear fallout results public after initially releasing the data. Radiation data from Seattle area survey may be withheld for national security purposes. Like, first off, you paid them to do that job, to find the radiation. You gave them the authority to go out and find the radiation for you, so you could be warned. You gave them the equipment so they could find it. You gave them the education so that they couldn't fuck it up. And it shows up and they all stab you in the back. Revolting, despicable fucking scum. Why don't you fuckers go out and cut your own throats? How can you ever look in a mirror, you despicable pieces of shit? You fucking traitors. It's sedition to do what they're doing. 20,000 excess U.S. deaths right away from heart attacks, up from 14,000 in a study. Washington Air Monitor shows sustained radiation spikes, then goes out of service. The same day radiation found in the drinking water. 40 million becquerels of just iodine-131 in a single bed of kelp off Southern California, and the amount was most likely larger because it washes down to the coastlines. Unprecedented spike in the air of sulfur. Radioactivity 300% of normal background in Los Angeles areas. 350 counts per minute in St. Louis areas near the iconic breeze. April 16 forecast shows radioactive clouds stretching from Texas to Canada. And at the height of the Fukushima emergency, regions of California where the plume hit had no monitors. And the only one left broke as radioactivity began spiking. California nuke plants detected 4,000% more than UC Berkeley did of gamma. Northern California soil hit post-Fukushima peak. UC Berkeley blamed it on weapons fallout. They stabbed you in the fucking face every step of the way, didn't they? Florida rated third most cesium, fifth most iodines, and 72 samples at that point. The actual truth is staggering. Fukushima radioactive plume contaminated the entire northern hemisphere during a very relatively short period of time. Radioactive cesium levels continue to rise in the milk from San Francisco. Ongoing continuous nuclear meltdowns does that, by the way. Radioactive iodine detected in Tampa Bay. Travels through the air very easily. And then you can say, well, the air is going to be full of curium and plutonium and americium and neptuniums and all the fucking hot particles, excuse the language. California iodine 131, probably double or triple what they've reported. And they use iodine and cesium as a way of manipulating you now for 75 years. So every time you hear the word iodine, you should want to punch a scientist in the face. Rain with 20 million particles of iodine 131. It would have had all the other isotopes in that same liter, see? And that's an insane number. It goes into your thyroid. The thyroid mutates it in the hormones, radioactive hormones, and so does the insects, and the birds, and the mammals, and the animals, and everything else. I mean, that's insane. That's 100% criminal. And then he hit it on you so you couldn't even protect yourself. At least South Korea and Taiwan told people to go to fuck home out of it. What we get? We got nothing but stabbed in the fucking back by the people we paid to protect us. By the universities we put our faith into. By the fucking medias that we put up on a pedestal. All of them haven't stopped stabbing us in the back yet. When does it end? At what fucking point are you going to say I'm sick of it? At what point does that happen for you? Because it happened to me a long fucking time ago. Believe it or not. And that's hard to believe, but it did. In the good old days, we'd get baseball bats and go fucking smack every one of them in the head for what they done. What happened to the good old days? Because that's what they deserve. The last thing they deserve to see is a fucking baseball bats coming at their heads. I suspect that day is coming. If the planet ever wakes up, it'll be baseball bat. You won't be able to find one on a single store shelf on the entire fucking planet. That's the best thing to do with them. Everything in the nuclear industry should be baseball batted out of the fucking ecosystem. You're a scum. You're a degenerate fucking scum, every one of you. You're horrific fucking traitors. You're not fucking human like us, that's for sure. You're despicable monsters. You're incredible fucking cowards. And you didn't call into the show, you fucking coward, did you? All nuclear, pro-nuclear can fuck off and die. You're a despicable burden on our planet. Anyway, that's it, I guess. I'm back with the same fucking monsters again tomorrow, I'm sure. Good night, everybody. Lucid, James, Thinker. Chelsea. Yeah, well, COVID is the cover story for radiation sickness. Albert, Port Angeles. Dana Nasana. Rage Against the Machine. Wingnut. Good night, everybody. Richard. God bless everybody except for the nuclear industry. You fucking scum nuclear industry. Despicable nuclear industry, you pieces of shit. Chet Austin. Good night, everybody. Catcha. Oh my, we made it through the night anyway. Piece of shit nuclear. Peaceware. It fucking enrages me what they're doing to our planet and the species. Well, there's no species left. I can't even get out in the woods anymore and look for the species, for goodness sakes. Nuclear industry has destroyed everything. They're just incredible, despicable cowards. Provoke. Good night, everybody. Have a great night. I only serve one king. Hi, Lori. Scrolling through the names quickly. Don Vincent. Okay, alrighty. Aqua. Yeah, put in a lead wall instead of a fucking ice wall. Ella. Colette S. I think we got through the list. Back down to the most recent comments. Chad. Blue Jay. Good night, everybody. God bless everybody. Hugs for everybody. Cleveland. Marco. Victor, Jen, not even the guy in Chicago at the embassy. No, nobody called. Big surprise, eh? Anyway, we'll see everybody tomorrow night. See everybody tomorrow night. I doubt if there'll be any calmer. I don't think it's possible. I think I'm sick of watching everything die around me in the last 10 years. I can't hold back my contempt any fucking longer. Have a great night, folks. We'll see everybody tomorrow night. Have a great day tomorrow. Take care now.
Wir betreten Feuertrunk